If someone were to ask you, what color is grass? You would think green. What color is the sky? We would think blue. But when you think about it, skin has no one color. Each one of us is a different, beautiful, and unique skin color. And that's what makes us beautiful, unique, and different. Today, we're going to paint a variety of beautiful, different skin colors. Think of your friends. Think of the people that you love, the friends in your neighborhood, the people you see every day. Take a look at the color of their skin. Stop and really admire the beauty. And today, we're going to use that as our inspiration for our painting. We're going to start with a painting. We'll be using yellow, red, black, and white to create a variety of skin tones. You'll also need paper to paint on, a paintbrush to paint with, and a cup of water to clean your brush. We're going to also be turning this into a weaving. So for that, you'll need a pair of scissors and glue. And if you want to create a heart to go over your weaving, you'll need an additional piece of paper to add that. All right, grab your paper, paintbrush, cup of water, and something to clean your brush with. I used a towel. You might use a sponge or even a paper towel, and let's get started. I'm going to start by having my paper go horizontally, and I'm going to begin with yellow first. It doesn't really matter what color you start with. The real key is to use tiny, weensy, itty bitty bits of paint at a time. For this first stripe of color, I used a little bit of yellow, a little bit of red, and a little bit of black. The reason I'm only using small amounts is because you can always add more paint. But if you put too much paint on your paper to start with, it gets a little bit tricky trying to balance out what's called the ratio of paint. You're trying to get a certain balance of colors to create the beautiful skin tones for your paper. I'm using stripes of paint here to create my vertical lines, but you don't have to do that. You could do horizontal lines. You could do shapes of color. You could do any kind of painting that you like to fill your page. But I really encourage you to think of a variety of skin tones, not just a couple. Really blend those colors a variety of ways so that you can get a bunch of beautiful tones. Again, think of your friends, the people you see every day, friends at your school, and try to paint those skin colors. When I start my painting, I'm not always starting with yellow. You'll notice that sometimes I begin with a completely different color. And sometimes my paintbrush, if I don't clean it super well, holds on to a little bit of color. I can use that color in my brush to make my next color. I'm using a kind of paint that's called tempera paint. You could do this with acrylic paint. You could also do this with watercolor paint, but you know what? Watercolor paint is a little bit of a different animal. So you might want to practice that on a piece of paper, of course, first. Like, how else do you do a painting? You do it on a piece of paper, just so you can really experiment with your art supplies. Now, you'll notice that the colors I'm using are the two primary colors, red and yellow, or ketchup and mustard, and white and black. Well, white and black, those are not the primary colors. There is one primary color that I left out of my palette today. I'm just not using it as I create these beautiful skin tones, and that's blue. That's right, the primary colors are red, yellow, and blue. The primary colors are the ones that you have to have in order to create all the other colors in the rainbow of people. Yeah, not just the rainbow that we might see in the sky, but the rainbow of friends that we have that we see every single day. So blue got left out of the crew, but I do have white and black. White makes a color light. When you make a color light, that is called a tint. Black makes a color darker. When you make a color dark, it is called a shade. Depending on how light or dark you make a color, that's called value. The lightness and darkness of a color is value. So as you create your skin tones, don't forget to include a variety of values, lighter skin tones and darker skin tones. And you already know how to do that with your white paint to make a tint and your black paint to make a shade. Once your paper is filled with your beautiful colors. Let it set aside and dry completely before you move on to the next step. Next step, we're going to be weaving all of these colors together. Once your paper has completely dried, you're going to need a pair of scissors for this next step. We're going to be making this paper into a loom for weaving. Some of this paper will also be used as what's called your weft. That's what you do your weaving with. Begin by taking your now dry piece of paper and folding the left over to the right side. Crease it, unfold it, and let's cut this in half. One half of that paper will be made into a loom for weaving, and the other half will be made into wefts to weave with. Take one of your pieces of paper and bring the bottom of the paper up to the top, folding your paper in half. Now, the top of your paper should be open. Take both of those pieces of paper and fold them down about an inch or the length of your finger. Starting at the bottom of your paper, look at me going in slow motion, find the middle of the bottom of the paper and cut to that very first fold. Then take the other side of that paper, find the middle, and also cut to the fold. Do the same thing on this side, finding the middle and cutting up to the fold. Now you have 4 pieces of paper hanging loose. Grab the middle of each one of those and cut up to the fold. In the end, you will have cut this paper 8 times. Is that right? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 8 times. I had to count, y'all. And stopping at that folded line. This is how we're making our paper loom for weaving. Once you've cut your paper, go ahead and very slowly open it up and you will have a loom for weaving. Let's check it out. Hey, not too shabby. All right, now with my other piece of paper, I'm going to cut strips of paper. These strips of paper will be used for weaving. Notice my paper is going vertically, and you could cut this paper any way you want to. I'm cutting it along the lines of color that I painted. But you might want to, as you cut, do the same or do it anyway, like really. But the main thing is that you don't want to cut too many strips, as you do have to weave them all together. To weave, you'll need to go under one of what's called the warp pieces of paper, or the ones going up and down or vertically, and then under the other one. It's going to create a checkerboard or an A-B-A-B pattern. The tricky part is when you get ready to weave the next strip. It will not do the same thing as the first one. It will always do the opposite. That will help lock your weaving in place. So take a look at my weaving. My first strip, I started by going under. So my next strip, I went over. And now I'm going under again. If you get confused about what to do, simply look at that last strip of paper. Anything that it did, do the opposite. If it's over, you go under. If it's under, you go over. And you'll notice that my other hand, or both of my hands, are working to move those warp papers, those ones that are going up and down or vertically. You sometimes have to pick them up to help the paper weave and have it go over and under. Something else you'll need to do is to scoot the papers down toward the bottom of the weaving like this. I like to use my fingernails to do that. The reason you want to do that is so that you can create a nice tight weave so that all of your papers are locked together beautifully. So you're going to want to make sure to scoot those papers down. Also, you'll want to use all of your papers. So if they don't fit, that's probably because you might need to scoot them down a little bit. Once your weaving is complete, we can move on to the next step. We're going to show how much that we love all of these colors, how much all of these colors are valued and have a place not only in our heart, but in everyone's heart. So to do that, I'm going to be using a black sheet of paper that I'll be cutting in half. But first, let me finish this weaving. I've got to squeeze in that one last piece of paper, and I'm doing that just by scooting all of these down. Ah, look at that. Masterpiece complete. Now I'll take that black sheet of paper, or any color that you want. I'm going to lay it down on my table horizontally and bring the left side over to the right side. Hold down the fold, smooth down that bump. I only need half of this paper, so that's why I folded it. I'm cutting the other part off. Maybe I'll save it for something else. Of course I will. I keep everything. And this other paper I'm going to use to make a heart. I'm folding it in half. And when I draw my heart, I only draw half of the heart, and it's super important that you draw it on the fold. That's right. Make sure that you're starting and ending on the fold. Once you've got your heart drawn, you can go ahead and cut it out, and you're going to have two shapes. You'll have one shape that's a filled in heart. That's the positive shape. I'm setting that aside because what I want is the negative shape, the empty heart, because I'm filling my heart with all of these beautiful colors, the ones that make up my community, the people that I see and love every day. So once I've got the glue around the edges, pressing that over my weaving, giving the paper a little massage. Ah, paper likey. Now you might notice that I'm leaving my weft papers sticking out of my weaving. I like the way that looks. You can do the same or you can trim them off. Most of all, have fun.